Hello. Today I'm going to talk about Zone 2 training, MAF training, low heart rate training, and whether or not it's something that I should use in my own running. Stick around and enjoy. And if you enjoy this video, press the like button and subscribe to my channel. Thanks. Hello, I'm Tom. I'm a 65-year-old injury-prone runner that has seasonal allergies. And I mentioned the injury proneness and the fact that I'm taking allergy medications because that is a factor to consider in the Moffatone system of low heart rate training. Okay, let me quickly explain low heart rate training. There's two ways to figure it. One way is sort of a generic, and this is not the Phil Moffatone system, but it's more of a generic system for figuring your heart rate and what it should be when you run. Then there's the MAF system, Phil Moffatone's system of low heart rate running. His recommendation is that you take 180 minus your age, and that is the heart rate in general that you should be at. So with me, that would be 115 beats per minute heart rate. Okay, however, because I have allergies and I'm taking medications for the allergies and other medications as well, prescription, and the fact that I'm injury prone, currently I'm struggling with pain in my right knee. Essentially, that means that I'm supposed to take about 5 and 10 off of that 115. So that puts me down to about 100 beats per minute when I run. Okay, there's a big problem with that in that my absolute slowest possible jog puts me well over 100. Puts me probably about 105 or so beats per minute. When I walk, I just did a test walking up here. This is the Canal Road, by the way. My heart rate was about 95 beats per minute, 90 to 95 beats per minute at an easy walk. Then at the absolute slowest, easiest jog, like I said, my heart rate jumps to maybe about 105. Yesterday, I ran and tried to run slowly. My heart rate was, I ran 5 miles yesterday, and my heart rate ended up being averaging at about 137, according to my Garmin watch. And I acknowledge that wrist watches they're not very accurate. A chest monitor would be more accurate, but hey, I'm never going to use a chest monitor, so why spend the money to get one? One gauge that I've come up with is it's the old adage that says, now's the time for all good peeps to come to the aid of their party. So I can recite that several times with just taking a breath between repeating that over and over again. So I was able to do that yesterday. I was also able to breathe through my nose, perhaps not easily while I was running yesterday, but I could breathe through my nose. That's another. So what I'm explaining is running by feel rather than running by heart rate. And that's something that I currently go by. And the primary indicator of running by feel would be your breathing rate. So yesterday I actually slowed down, thanks to my physical therapist who did recommend that I slow down on my easy days. I run by feel, and I'm probably going to stick to that system rather than to go by heart rate. That's also known as the running by perceived effort, although I think that's just a artsy way of trying to sound scientific. The primary way of going by feel is to go by your breathing rate. You know, can you hold a conversation, an easy conversation? That would put you basically in zone 2. However, because my heart rate is at 137, according to the zone 2 statistics of having 5 zones, I would be in zone 3, probably, maybe even teetering in up to zone 4. And I guess there is an in-between where I could stick to about 115. That would be something like the easiest jog between a normal easy run. So I am able to do that, but do I want to do that? Absolutely not. Hey, I'm a runner. I want to run. He suggested that, well, there's 2 zones, the aerobic zone and the anaerobic zone, and rather than the 5 zones. So both the MAF system as well as the standard zone 2 calculation put my heart rate between 100 and 110. One big reason that I don't use the zone 2 MAF low heart rate training is because I'm not a techie. I'm not really into technology. I'm more of an artsy type, I suppose, an artsy type without artistic talent. I just like to go out there and enjoy the run. I just like to hear my breathing, as long as it's not too hard of breathing. Just suck in the air, enjoy the clouds, enjoy the wildlife, and just have fun running. Yeah, so if I were stuck with checking my heart rate monitor constantly, that would drive me batty. So I'd rather just go out there, run by feel, have fun, enjoy it. However, I'm not saying that my system is for everybody. There are a lot of techies out there. There's a lot of people that are science. I won't call them nerds necessarily. I mean, I'm a nerd. I'm an artistic nerd, but so I'm an artsy nerd. Some people are science nerds. Some people like accuracy. You know, maybe using a heart rate monitor appeals to them. Okay, off the top of my head, I'll go ahead and mention the 5 training zones. Zone 1 would be the easiest zone. That would be like an easy walk, approaching a brisk walk, and where you're hardly breathing. You know, it's pretty much like not walking. Zone 2 would be considered the aerobic zone, where you're doing, let's say, an easy jog. Zone 3, you're picking it up. That's sometimes referred to as like aerobic threshold, maybe a tempo pace. I personally, I wouldn't say zone 3 is a tempo pace. I think that you're venturing into zone 4 when you do tempo pace running. But what is a tempo pace? Coaches really differ. You know, if you ask one coach to define what a tempo run is and ask another coach to define it, they would be very different. So anyway, aerobic threshold would be zone 3. That's the threshold is that point where your running goes from aerobic to anaerobic. That's the threshold point. And so so zone 3 would be where you're just at that point where you're running aerobically. You know, your body is producing lactic acid, running anaerobically, excuse me. Anaerobic, by the way, means without oxygen. Okay, then there's zone 4, which would be considered the anaerobic zone or the lactate threshold zone. So you're breathing pretty hard. It's interval training. You've heard of interval training on the track, or even doing a hard fartlek run on the road with a trail. That would be what is considered zone 4. Then there's zone 5, commonly known as the VO2 max zone. That's when you're pretty much doing an all-out sprint. Either that or just below sprinting, and you're doing super fast intervals, perhaps on the track, like 200-meter intervals, 400-meter intervals at, let's say, mile race pace, that kind of a thing, where it's hard breathing. There's absolutely no way you'd be able to talk doing those things. If you did, it would just be single syllables, that kind of thing, single words. Definitely no conversation. So anyway, those are the 5 zones, and there's several benefits for running at a zone 2 pace, or running at the MAF aerobic pace. Now, one benefit is it efficiently burns fats. So if you're dieting, hey, go for a brisk walk or a very easy run, and you'll burn fats. Of course, don't compensate by, after the run, gorging, which there tends to be an urge to do that after a run. Another benefit is it builds up the aerobic base, which is essential, especially if you're a competitive runner. You want to get that aerobic base built up. Basically, it'll make you run faster. Of course, you also need to build the anaerobic engine as well by doing faster pace running, but the vast majority of your running should be at that slow pace. Another benefit, and one that applies to me, another benefit for the zone 2 training or running at a slow pace is it's less of a risk for injury. There's something about those legs moving slower. There's less pounding, less impact, less extension of the legs. The faster you go, the more pounding there is, the more you're extending your muscles and ligaments, and the more of those bones are getting worked, and it's just a higher risk for injury. That's my motivation for running slower. Of course, if I were going purely by emotions and passions, I would run fast all the time. But I know that's not good for me, and my physical therapist says it's not good for me.
One day later.
Hello, it's the next day. I'm up here on the Lydiard Canal. It's a little bit elevated from the flatlands where we live, so I walked from our home up to the canal road. I'm in the middle of my warm-up for a 5-mile run. As I was walking to the canal, my pulse was over 100. It was about 101 to 103 beats per minute, which was more than my previous walking pulse yesterday when I was doing some videotaping. I'm now going to continue on to the 5-mile run. I'll give the results of my pulse rate. And again, I'm going to do what my physical therapist says and run at a slow pace. Easily what I think would be zone 2, easy breathing. We shall see. I think I have a high pulse. Another thing that might influence the high pulse is I had a big mug of coffee about a half hour before starting the run. That's kind of my norm. I typically drink a big mug of coffee before running, before racing. So that can elevate the heart rate as well. Okay. I'm just past mile 3, and this is a test of my breathing rate. So you be the judge. Okay, I'm definitely breathing, and I'm trying to run really easy. Now is the time for all good peeps to come to the aid of their party. Okay, I guess I'm not going at a easy conversational pace. It is a little bit difficult for me to finish a sentence. I'll flash my heart rate on the screen just so you know what it has been during this run. And I suppose if I practice what I preach, I should be slowing down a little. The breathing rate is kind of high. Okay, I'm back home. 5-minute walk from the canal to our home. And my conclusions are kind of interesting. My average heart rate for the 5-mile run was 133 beats per minute. I don't know, maybe that would put me in zone 3. I don't think I was in zone 2 because my breathing was a little bit too labored. You heard it earlier. I suppose I could slow down even more and inch into zone 2. However, on second thought, I don't know if I could do zone 2, being that Phil Maffetone would say that I need to be running at 100, 105 beats per minute. And I don't think that's possible for me. That's just practically a walk. And I really would not care to do that. It would take the enjoyment out of running. I think I'll stick to the pace that I'm going at now, which is a slower pace than I normally go at. So there you go. Thanks for watching the video, and please keep watching.